So the patch is hit, and Pot has been hit with the nerf patch. How bad is it? Honestly, not as bad as it could have been. Let's break it down. Pot did receive some nerfs via changes to the universal system mechanics. YRC now pushes the opponent away on block, which means Pot can no longer threaten a buster or strike post YRC. On top of that, the opponent can now YRC during a guard crush, which can mess with Garuda Oki. However, there are still some setups that lead to a YRC safe Garuda, so it's not all bad. Plus, Pot being able to YRC on guard crush is also useful for defense considering, well, we'll talk about that later. Blue Wild Assault now has a much harsher scaling, meaning it'll be a worse combo tool. Fortunately, it still retains the guard crush and the stagger, which means it's still good for a pressure tool. Stagger now has a set duration with no button presses, and no longer lets you get fake combos. No more Blue Wild Assault Garuda on hit because they didn't stagger correctly. Finally, in terms of system mechanics, Risk got reworked to be less oppressive. Instead of removing scaling from combos, what it does now is reduce the defensive value of the opponent the more Risk is built up. And while this does mean Pot's combos with Risk won't do as much damage, it does mean that Risk now applies to Potbuster and Heavenly, which means if you build up Risk on them, you can now do a more damaging Potbuster than you would have done before. However, Risk also doesn't build as fast as it used to, meaning it's not as easy to stack Risk anymore. Now, let's take a look at Potemkin himself. First up, Pot has a worse defensive modifier, which means he doesn't have as much health as he used to. He's still one of the tankiest characters in the game, but not by a dramatic amount. Forward Megafist got hit with a slower startup and worse hurtbox. It now hits on frame 28 instead of frame 25, and has worse landing recovery. This slower startup means it's harder to hit people in the air with it. The hurtbox has been moved down, so it's easier to hit on the way down compared to before. But, on the upside, the launch has been improved to allow for meterless combos on hit. Generally, you can get a 2K or a close slash depending on how close you are. I think they want it to be a hard call out to fireballs or horizontal pokes, given how hard it is to hit people in the air with it. It's much worse as a neutral tool now, but if you call it out right, you can still get plenty of reward. Slidehead received a massive nerf, with the armor on it being removed. This can make the move pretty risky to go for in a lot of situations due to the slow startup and high counter-hit state recovery. Without the armor, you can't blow up higher commitment long-distance pokes like Arbiter Sign. There's also buffs to the combo scaling on it, but I doubt they're going to be all that relevant. They did make it so Pot has his crouching hurtbox during the startup, but I feel like this move is going to be used very sparingly from now on, if at all. Flick became that's right, one frame faster.
That's incredible!
This is useful because there were certain characters who could 6P post 6K and beat Flick. Now, it's entirely universal. Unfortunately, now we hit the two biggest nerfs in my opinion. Hammerfall is now slower and it doesn't travel as far. This means that at further distances, Hammerfall will stop where it used to travel. This is extremely important because it means his Oki has been weakened in a few key places. Any hit at farther ranges won't be allowed to get Oki anymore, like an air hit 5H at a distance or a slide head at range. And post-Buster or post-wall break now requires Kara Hammerfall, and in the case of the 4-framers, a frame-perfect one. Now you can still use Armor Buster to blow through people trying to mash on your Oki, but in general, this makes Potemkin's Oki much easier to deal with. And finally, Heavenly Potbuster spends its meter the moment it is input. This means that Heavenly PRC is no longer possible with 50 meter, which is a pretty harsh nerf considering that was his only invincible reversal. It's still possible to do it with 100 meter, but you're going to have to start relying on Armor Buster a lot more now for defense. So, How did Potemkin make out? Considering everyone was calling for his head, Pot got away with murder. He still has plenty of really strong tools like Potbuster, Gigantor, Garuda, Heavenly, and Hammerfall PRC. This just means he'll have a harder time getting in to use these super strong tools. I do think he'll struggle against the zoners more than he used to with the nerfs to his neutral. In my eyes, he'll still be, at the very least, fine, if not still strong. We'll just have to see how things play out in the long run. Thanks for watching, and look, I know it's tempting to hop on ranked mode and grind forever, but you should be careful. You may think, oh, I'll hop on ranked and reach diamond, no problem. But then, the next thing you know, it's 5 AM, you've lost 3,000 points, and you're about to break a controller in half out of sheer rage because this soul will not stop DPing on every wake up even though you punish him like 5 times. What is wrong with you? Stop DPing, for the love of God! It's not worth it. Don't lose your mind because of the funny points.